Okay, we have Councillor Glover's actually moved an amendment. I will read it out to you. And actually, I'll get a seconder. Would you like me to read it out first before we... Are you quite happy, or are you quite happy to read? I can read it for the sake of the recording as well. There's an amendment being put to this motion under item 3, which is to advise the Balingup Townscape Committee that Council is going to defer the decision on the following projects, 3.1 and 3.2, which is regarding the raising the footbridge on Rothery Walk and or raising of the footpath on Rothery Walk for the following reason. Further investigation on the access to consultant and construction engineers has been held to establish if this project is within the committee's expertise and can meet the Shire's compliance and liability requirement. Are you happy with that, Councillor Glover?
Yes, I am, thank you.
Okay, do we have a seconder for this amendment? Councillor Massey. So, Councillor Glover, would you like to speak to your amendment, the amendment, because you have actually put this amendment in?
I feel that, investigating this further could be of great value for finances for the Shire, as well as the benefit of encouraging participation within the community. So further investigation means that we're acknowledging and we're covering all of our bases with it. Doesn't mean it will happen, but it just means that we can actually allow for further discussion to be held.
Thank you. Councillor Massey, did you wish to speak to the amendment?
Only to say, I think very similarly to Councillor Glover, that it would be great if we could have some further discussion here, and who knows what might eventuate. I understand what Mr Potter's saying, that it doesn't fit with the policy as, prima facie, but nonetheless, if there could be some discussion to see what could be possible, I think that would be of value. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Massey. Are there any questions? Yeah, Councillor Atherton.
Thank you, Madam President. Is it possible to have a time frame applied to this?
Thank you. Put that onto this. Yes, yeah, would you like to comment on that?
If we can just, sorry, Arch, just go to the red bit text here. Yes, it is possible to put a time frame on it. Without having the benefit of the Townscape Committee here, someone to speak on behalf of them, it's hard to know what their timeframes would be. We can put a timeframe to initiate the conversation with the Townscape Committee. I'm quite comfortable for that, and that's easy to do. But once we start the process, we're in the hands somewhat of the Townscape Committee and their ability to, as volunteers, to meet with us and have these detailed conversations. If you wanted to put in there that, where are we, 3, advises the Balingup Townscape Committee is going to defer the decision on the following projects. Where would you put the time frame in there? I'd probably just put another sentence towards the end, saying that correspondence with the Townscape Committee to commence within 3 weeks or 2 weeks or something like that.
May I add to that then? I'm thinking rather than correspondence, can we speak to them as opposed to writing to them, because I think that that's what they might be seeking. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Communication maybe.
Yeah. Correspondence. Yeah. If I may, Madam President, I can give my undertaking that will happen. If you want to put it in the resolution, you're entitled absolutely as a council to do that. At this stage, I think that's an amendment to the amendment, so you'd have to pass this one, run another amendment to add the date in, and then go back to the substantive. The ball's in your court, however, council laws.
Unless the okay. All right. Well, just is there any other questions? I think Councillor Newman, you look like you had your hand up there. Were you going to ask a question on this? Okay. I've got a couple of questions. This doesn't affect the budget, so the rest of it would go through. Obviously, we're only talking about the actual amendment at the moment, but either way, it's not going to affect the budget drafting because this was originally going to be not put in the budget. Am I correct in saying that? Was that what you? Sorry, Bobby, it was a bit hard to.
Mr. Dolzelli and Mr. Potter, you might need to help me on that one, please.
Thank you, Mr. CEO and Madam President. If I understand the question correctly, what the question is that we're deferring a decision on the Rothery Walk component. So the intent of the report is really to identify what funds will be put into the next budget.
Yep.
So if I understand it correctly, what Council, based on the amendment, is suggesting is that the $8,600 will go into the 22-23 budget, and we will further conversations with the Balingup Townscape Committee to identify whether there's an opportunity to engage with the committee to undertake the additional works for further consideration down the track. But it would be unlikely to fall into that 22-23 budget. I mean, given the nature of the task and the engineering and the design and all those sorts of things, I would suggest that's probably a good way to approach it, with perhaps a view, if it was to happen, considering it at the next budget.
Okay. You got a question, have you? Or yes, Councillor.
Well, I do.
You do have a question?
I don't know if we're straying from the process here. However, what my understanding is that with the Townscape Committee funding, there's an amount of money that's just been set aside for Townscape funding anyway, you know, and it's divided evenly. Well, it's divided between the three towns.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, you know, if it is that they have a way of doing it and what not to, perhaps then they would use the money that's already been allocated for Townscape, and it might go from Donnybrook to Balingup for this time, and then maybe, you know, in the next finance. So the money's already sitting there. It's just the allocation to towns that I think would be the query around that. So if you get what I mean, the money's sitting there. Is that correct?
Well, in the policy, it's actually got written down where it'd be allocated. So I guess we're going up against the policy to actually address
well,
that.
Well, there is no
there,
Donnybrook Townscape Committee, so I guess it's sort of the bucket of money for Townscape committees is there. It's just a matter of how we divide it from there. That's all. That's my query. So it's not asking for any extra money in Townscape's committee. It's just drawing from that bucket that's sitting there of funds.
Would someone like to make a comment on it? Or?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. There's no bucket of money at the moment because we haven't passed the budget for next year, and the conversation on this can happen through the deliberations on the budget. I think Mr. Potter, Madam President, has something else to add.
Further, in previous budgets, it's identified as Kirup Townscape Works, Balingup Townscape Works, Donnybrook Townscape Works. So it's not one account; it's basically three different accounts.
Thank you. Are there any other questions in regards to this amendment? Okay, so we're actually going to vote on the amendment at the moment. So all those in favour of this amendment? No one against, so that's carried. Okay, so that now, unless there's any other amendments to go forward, that becomes the substantive motion. We deal with the substantive motion. Okay, so we're going to the substantive motion. We've had a mover and a seconded for this. Do we have any questions first on the substantive motion in total, as it stands? Okay, do we have anyone against the motion that would like to speak? We don't? Okay, well, I'm going to put it to the vote. All those in favour of this substantive motion? Anyone against? No, it's carried. Thank you. We're going to move to the next one. And it's 9.3.1, Balingup Rail Group, draft budget, funding allocation. Would someone like to move a motion? Councillor Glover, seconder? Councillor Newman? Councillor Glover, did you wish to speak to the motion?
I found the presentation tonight incredibly interesting and very uplifting to see how easy that this could actually come to fruition. And I would encourage my fellow councillors, if this is the space to do it, to vote alongside it and to allow the $5,000 to be allocated towards this project.
Thank you, Councillor Glover. Councillor Newman, did you wish to speak as a seconder? Before we proceed any further to any against, do we have any questions on this? I know we have asked a couple of questions to Mr. Hodge when he did the deputation. Any other questions? No? Is there anyone against this motion? No. Okay. Councillor Glover, did you wish to write a reply? We haven't got anyone against, so would you like to write a reply? Okay. So I'm just going to put this to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried. No one was against, was it? No. Good. Okay, we're going to move to our last motion for the public gallery. And this is 9.3.2. And this is the corporate business plan review. Do I have a mover? Councillor Glover, seconder? Councillor Jones? Councillor Glover, did you wish to speak to the motion?
Certainly do. I've also made an amendment on this motion as well, which I have given it in, so it's sort of everyone's aware of what that is as well. Yep. So objective 13 of this council plan actually talks about increased. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong part. I'm sorry, outcome 11 is about strong visionary leadership, and outcome 12 is a well-respected, professionally run organisation. That's what's in the council plan. So that's why I've actually suggested the amendment to come through, and it's more about just linking into our agenda the strategic alignment and linking the document into that, and then for having a way of reporting that back to show that, first of all, we are linking all of the projects and the objectives of the council plan into the agenda, and then a way of being able to show a measure that these things are actually being achieved as well. So that's the amendment that I was putting forward. But other than that, I think the plan is very good. Obviously, we've had a lot of input into it, and yes, I think it's a well-written plan.
Thank you, Councillor Glover. Councillor Jones, you're the seconder. Did you wish to speak to the motion?
Madam Chairman, I think the workshop we had a couple of weeks ago covered all these issues, and they've been rectified, and I believe they're pretty well correct. Okay, thank you very much. Now, I'm going to come back to yourself because you said you wanted to put an amendment in, which you sort of talked about in your speaking to the motion. So we can put that in now if you like. There we go. There it is already. And thank you for bringing that forward early as well, because it helps with the minute taker for sure. Do we have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Massey? Just about ate the microphone. Do we have any questions? Before I proceed, I'll go back to Councillor Glover because you might wish to speak to the actual amendment.
I probably don't have much more to add except for it just kind of provides a little more clarity around where we're going and how we're getting there as well, and an update for everybody to see that it's measurable as well.
Okay, Councillor Massey, you seconded the amendment. Would you like to speak to the amendment?
I think it's important to be able to demonstrate to us and to beg your pardon. Only that I think it's important that we're able to demonstrate to council and also to members of the public that we're doing what we say we're doing. But I also have a question, and I can mention that question now or later.
No, you can mention it now.
Okay,
Yes.
I'd really like the CEO maybe to advise us what he thinks of this proposal, in particular how we currently maybe show progress in that, and whether this would, in his view, add value. So can I just throw that open? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question. I'll pass it over to the CEO.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you very much, and thank you, Councillor Massey, for that question. In helping Councillor Glover to draft this, had some thought about that. Absolutely. In terms of, there's two parts to your question: how we report at the moment versus the proposal for bi-monthly reporting. At the moment, reporting is through the annual report. So that's it's a fairly standard reporting process. In the body of this council report, under the executive summary, it's mentioned that a status updates on the progress of the priority projects will be presented to council twice a year. So the concept of biannual reporting against the council plan is already registered by the staff. So I've got no qualms in seeing it there as part of the council resolution, as well as recording objectives and actions when they come to council. There's a lot of elements in the council plan which won't necessarily come to council. So there's an opportunity for the staff to provide an update biannually to council, but also publicly available to the community as well, which gives an overview of all of the activities that lead towards achieving the council plan items, whether they come to council or not.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? I have a question. Just to clarify the amendment number 3, requesting reference numbers in regards to the strategic alignment to the council plan. When we look at this agenda item 9.3.2 and we have the strategic alignment and we mention like a respected, professional and trusted organisation, in the council plan this would have a number like 12.1.1. Is that correct? And that's what we're referring to here?
Madam President, that's correct. In fact, under the strategic alignment heading on the agenda items, we used to have the numbers registered in there. They've slipped away over the last couple of months, not through any design, but in some good discipline through this resolution, we'll see them back in.
Thank you for that clarity. Are there any other questions before we... No? Okay. Is there anyone against this actual amendment? So we're dealing with the amendment at the moment. Anyone against the amendment? No. I'll put it back to for the right of reply to Councillor Glover.
I'm all good, thank you.
I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour of this amendment? Carried. Okay, that now becomes a substantive motion with points 1, 2, 3 and 4. We have a mover and a seconder and they have spoken. Is there any last questions on the substantive motion before... No? Yes, Councillor Glover.
I just had a couple of questions just around it, and I guess when we went through and we did the workshop, we looked at referencing documents because initially it was about strategies and things like that too. But on page 12, 2.4, it was about responsible animal ownership, and it says to stop puppy farming, the document, and I just kind of thought that that's a little bit, I get it, but I wasn't sure about that legislation matching that particular item, and I don't know, it might be too late to change that, but I just kind of thought that stop puppy farming legislation might be a little bit too, as a document to do that. It probably doesn't matter, but I just kind of felt it didn't match responsible dog ownership, that's all.
Okay, thank you for the question.
So is
So
it
my
a question?
question would be, is it possible just to change that and have something else in there that might match it a little more than puppy farming?
Yeah, you happy to answer that? Thank you.
Thanks, Madam President. To my mind, it's neither here nor there, really. We changed the column from, as you mentioned, from strategies to related documents. It's a document in the form of legislation which is related to responsible puppy management. Are there other things that we can add there? Yeah, probably. When we review the document next year, rather than going back for another edit and taking more edit fees when we go back to the designers, if I was making the decision, and I'm not, I'd just leave it as it is and pick it up next year. But I'm not the council, you all are.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the question. Now, I think you moved that, so would you like the right to reply, because we haven't got anyone against?
I'm all good, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to put this substantive motion to the vote. All those in favour? There's no one against, so it's carried. Okay, that concludes our open part to our meeting. Do I have a mover to go behind closed doors? Councillor Newman moved and Councillor Jones seconded. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you very much for attending tonight. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your evening.